Welcome to the BFC X Wonderland How to Become series. My name is Tony Blazy-Beckware and I'm editor-in-chief of Wonderland magazine, and I'm joined by the gorgeous, amazing menswear designer Bianca Saunders. Do a little clapsy. Bianca, thank you so much for joining me on the platform. I'm so excited to talk about your journey in menswear and just kind of your rise into fashion. How are you feeling so far?
Really good, and thank you for inviting me.
I wanted to kind of just talk about, obviously, during this crazy time that we're going through, how have you kind of remained creative during this time?
I think I just had a lot more time to spend time reading, drawing a lot more. And before, I was literally just rushing around. So designing was kind of like rushed into one small schedule. And I guess just having time to think has been really important for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like we forget how fast we're going, and then we don't really, look back and see how well we've done, or just little things like that. And we're just kind of like, no. And I'm sure for you, like, you do one collection, it goes to sales, and you're already thinking about like the next collection or the next collaboration. I think for me during this time, I've just been like, luckily staying creative, doing these sorts of things, and like being able to like put makeup on and feel normal while we can't really be outside. So it's definitely helped me 100%. I want to like take it back to the very beginning, to baby Bianca growing up in South London. How was that for you?
It was great. I feel like I kind of got like a well-balanced like life. Being in South is quite close to like Kent. So I remember being younger and like being with friends, and we'll go to like Bromley to shop, and then having the journey of like the first time going to West End was like a massive experience, or the first time going to like Selfridges is something that I really remember. And I think that's what really excited me about luxury fashion.
No, I agree with you. I'm from South London as well, so shout out to everyone if anyone's watching from South. Well, who knows? But I remember also, like, before the Overground, maybe that's just showing my age. I don't think it is, because Overground is pretty a recent thing. But obviously,
Nice.
before the Overground, going to like Shoreditch and traveling up there, and it was such a big day out to like all the vintage shops, because obviously vintage it went through this phase where vintage was like everybody was buying vintage, and everyone wanted to have those like £30 vintage jumpers or whatever it is. So I definitely relate to that story, because I remember growing up, and South is such a vibrant place, but it was always nice to kind of like travel to your East or your Bromley or your Kent and stuff like that. And in terms of just like, being from Caribbean, Jamaican descent, how has that influenced your work today?
I think it's just kept the most like, for me, like being Caribbean is like something I've continuously tried to put in my work, whether it's been a little bit more subtle or a bit more out there. Like if you look at my Autumn Winter 20 collection, it was based around like dancehall culture, looking at artists like Shabba Ranks. I used quite a few of these references in my research. And then just the idea of like kind of showing off, like showing your outfits and being in front of the camera was what really focused my research. And then looking back at like old 90s videos, like I remember when I was younger, my dad always used to buy them, watch them to see who was in like the video and who was like, I guess, being shouted out on the microphone. So that sort of vibrancy, I try to make it underlining in the collections. Some of them have been a bit more quieter, where it might have been based around like the Caribbean home. I've used that as an influence for myself in previous ones, especially I did that for my graduate collection. When I graduated from Kingston, I was looking at rude boy culture and then focusing on like my uncles and their sort of style.
I love how you've been able to kind of like have those references in your work, because I feel like Caribbean culture is so rich. It's like African culture. There's so much to jump into, and it's all about looking good and showing out in your best outfit. And I know for an experience of African culture, because my parents are Nigerian too, so it's like getting ready for the wedding, or you could be invited to someone's wedding and you're like looking for your look, and you don't even know who's getting married, but you're still going because you've got your outfit and everything. So I love how you can just infuse your culture with your Autumn to 20, and looking back into like you said, with your dad and everything like that. In terms of just the culture in general, what is it that you love about Caribbean culture?
I think just mostly the musical influences, because those most of the people where I've kind of picked my muses from. I tend to like, even being in the studio, like making my interns listening to like, it'll kind of skip from Blood Orange to listening to like, I don't know, Sanchez or something like that, like a really like mix. It's continuous throughout my influence, and I hope it kind of like shows more in new collections to come, especially like now that I'm hoping to move into like runway. That's more based on the music and more based on like people kind of like being influenced by it. So I hope to show that more.
I mean, that's really exciting, because I feel like I would actually love to just attend a show and have like, I don't know, like Vibes Cartel like playing in the background, and it being like this just fusion of music that obviously when you grow up from South London or always any area really in London, you kind of reminiscent of those sort of sounds. So that's actually really, really fun to think about, that, you know, Bianca's going to be on the runway and it's going to be definitely a vibe, not just only in the clothes, but just like the whole aesthetics of it all. Do you have a moment when you look back, you kind of realised you always wanted to be in the fashion industry, or you knew that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's been like peaks in my life. Like I remember being in secondary school and mentioning to my friends I wanted to be a fashion designer, and people were like, oh, is that really a career? You should probably come up with a plan B. Like my parents had never told me what to do because they always saw that I had a passion within, oh, I hate the word passion, but it makes sense, you know, making things and creating things. And whenever my friends used to come over for like sleepovers, I would try to force them into like coming home with a bag, or like trying to make sure they bring something to sort of like remake an old piece they had in their house and that sort of stuff. So most people that support me now always say like tell me little stories about, I remember you when you used to do this, or like I remember you told me that you want to do this, and it's so great to see that you're doing it now. So I've never really had other career paths that I wanted to kind of go into, and I'm glad that fashion has been very fruitful for me.
I love that. I feel like we've got like a similar like start. I definitely had, I was always telling people that I was either going to, well, I thought I was going to be a fashion designer. Then when I did the foundation, I realized you guys do like 200 designs in like 2 days. I was like, maybe this isn't my, you know, thing. I can't really draw and it's not going to work out. But I do remember having that journey of being like, I knew I wanted to do something in fashion, whether it was fashion design or obviously progressed to like styling and stuff. Do you have like any like super, super, super early memories, like maybe even being like a child of like fashion and maybe looking up at like people in your family and stuff like that?
It's weird because my mum's a hairdresser, so I spent majority of my time like being in the hairdressers. Like the first sort of magazines where I kind of saw fashion was in like either Black Hair magazine or like Ebony magazine, and you kind of have like the small articles and that sort of stuff. And then that, I guess, developed forward where Vogue and all the other big titles were household names. And then the magazines that the customers used to leave behind is what I would usually flick through and try to like draw and design from. Because I was like, after school, I'll be at the hairdressers, before school sometimes, if that was even possible. And then like if anyone came sort of home, I'll be like, I guess, cutting out what was in those magazines to kind of create mini looks, I guess. From a young age, I always knew what I wanted to do. I guess it is always start with art as well too. I remember being young and telling my mum I wanted to be an artist, and then her coming to an assembly or something like that, and I was so embarrassed to tell people that, oh, I want to be an artist kind of thing. So I just ended up saying I want to be a midwife, and then she was just like, make sure you do what you want to do, don't make you feel embarrassed about that. And then from there, it's just literally been like, go, like don't give up kind of thing. And very like lucky to have that, because not every person has supportive parents that are encouraging them to be creative. Being a person of colour is not as encouraged, so I've been told.
No, I agree. I think sometimes like when you're obviously being a person of colour and your parents look at these spaces of like fashion or maybe the arts, they don't really see anyone that looks like you at that time. So maybe it kind of draws them away from pushing you towards that direction. So it is definitely lucky to have parents that are willing to push you in that direction, even though you know, to your peers, you might have had to say you wanted to be a midwife. Even for me, I was like, oh, I'm going to do like HR. And I didn't really know what HR was. I just knew it was like recruitment. I was like, yeah, like that's what I might get into, or like social work. So everyone goes through that moment, I guess, where you kind of have your plan B, but then it's nice how plan A is, you know, the main plan has taken over what you were telling people that you were potentially going to do. And, you know, in terms of just like initial steps that you took towards like fashion, how did you kind of come across, you know, unis and just researching courses and foundations and all that sort of process?
I remember one day I was like reading, I think it was like an Elle magazine or something like that, and there was a particular girl that was in it. It's like had a name, her age, and what school she went to. So I was like, oh, Kingston, I'm definitely going to go there. And then I like heard that it was like one of the top 10 unis, and sometimes in order to be noticed, you kind of do have to go to the best schools, as sad as it does sound, but it is literally that the people that you're around and you meet at these schools influenced me and also pushed me to be better as a designer. And then I guess going through Kingston, I had a really good mentor who was actually my tutor, but it almost became like a mentor because we would have like small private conversations and stuff like that. And he was the one that encouraged me to do menswear and even encouraged me to go to the RCA. Before, I guess, my final year, I didn't really think that uni was possible. Like the only, well, not uni, but no, my master's was possible. So the only people I knew that went to the RCA were like famous artists like David Hockney and that sort of stuff. So I was like, yeah, this is definitely a good move for me. I really want to be on the Google site and then you can be like the top people that went to this school kind of thing. Doing those steps, it's like something I wouldn't change for the world, and it's aided me to kind of be where I am. It's something that people always talk about as one of my achievements, being at those prestigious schools, and I've learned so much from it, and I don't think I would have been the designer that I am today if I've done it any other way.
Because I do sometimes say this when people ask me, you don't have to go to uni, you don't have to do that, you can go through the work experience route. It's obviously nice to hear your journey because it's like it does champion going to a good school or just going to a top 10 school, and going through that route can still gain results that you want with your career and just your journey in general. Because I know most people are like, you don't have to go to uni for fashion, like just go and just experience it. And sometimes it is good to have that technical schedule and, you know, have a tutor. And like you said, but the people that you meet during that time is just invaluable. Like even me, I went to St. Martin's, and the people I met there, you see them in the industry, you walk past them like, you know, during a show or whatever it is. So like it's definitely a good thing to champion 100%. And just in terms of like any early like designers that design menswear, are there any early inspirations that you had in the beginning?
I first started looking at menswear, I really admired, or still to this day admire, Craig Green. I feel like he did a lot in terms of like making Men's Fashion Week an important thing to even look at and see, like his creativity and like what he's actually done, turning his design from like on the runway to like being in store, still being able to exist to this day is really tough. Like not many designers can last that long and have that same recognition. And even the fact that he recently, January, he showed in Paris, like everything that he's achieved is, I guess, been something I've looked up towards and been a template. And the fact that he's a really nice person as well too is very admirable, because in fashion there's always this thing like, oh, you have to be mean to kind of like get to a certain position. But yeah, it's every person that has spoken about him has always been like such a nice person. Or it's so weird though, I wonder if like I said so much about him, it's like I wonder if he knows that I've said such things. And then I guess I look at people like Marc Jacobs, I guess becoming a creative director and having his own brand, and I guess having parts of his career where it was kind of difficult, and then it's also become things that have been historic. If you look at like Perry Ellis and what he did there, those things like really shaking the table is something that I try to do within my work, unintentionally but intentional at the same time.
I love that term, shaking the table, because it's such a funny term. No, but it's so true. Even with like Marc Jacobs and Perry Ellis, like you said, like that obviously that collection had at the time was obviously legendary. Like looking back at the time, he was getting so much bad reviews for it, and it was like, what is this? Like, and then when you look back, these are like pioneers in our industry. And again, like you said, Craig Green, just like I remember like going to shows, you know, talking to fellow stylists and being like, they literally are shedding tears after a Craig Green show. Like people are like generally crying. Yeah, no, it's very dramatic. I mean, I'm not one to shed a tear, you know. But like, I understand like the, you know, the feeling of connecting to a designer when you feel like something revolutionary is happening, or there's a change in menswear. It feels very like, you know, like iconic, as you would say. In terms of RCA and Kingston, how was it like to study at both places?
It was I feel like it was two different experiences. When I was at Kingston, I think because I come from London, I went to all girls school. It was quite mixed. There was an equal balance of like all different races, as well as like my primary school as well too. So then I guess going to Kingston, meeting people outside of London was different for me. I was like, oh, I don't even know where that is on the map. Well, at the time, I'm sure I've learned better now, of course. Going to the RCA was different because you're meeting people from around the world as well. At Kingston, you didn't meet them. There wasn't many people in my course that were from different countries. So it was nice to be able to gain that sort of exposure, as well as like expose people to myself. Of course, at the time, it did make me feel some type of way, like being a bit like alien to certain people. It was like the experience of that was kind of like, there was a bigger thing to sort of like go towards. Being here today and being the person who I am was because of my talents and like being able to work next to people that are really talented is what I really learned from the experience.
And how was like RCA? Like, how did it differ in terms of like, because that is such a prestigious uni to go to?
It was really weird because I applied quite last minute. So imagine starting school year, I applied around like June time and then had my interview around August, then got in, then I had to go in September. So it was kind of like I didn't really get to mentally prepare myself that much, but at the same time I was like, if I don't go now, I'm never going to go. I remember when I first got in, I always used to take the walk from the station to be able to walk through Exhibition Road. You get to see like the V&A and like all these like prestigious buildings, and like a person like myself from South London, would they ever get to experience something like that and have like to go to a school on that level? And it was also, at first it was a little bit intimidating because you're like, I was one of 12 menswear designers on that course out of 60 people, and like hundreds of people apply. So it was like quite a lot of a confidence push to learn that I'm here for a reason and I got in because my work is saying something.
Your work is fabulous.
Thank you.
You're very, very talented. Anyone watching this that wants some advice with regards to getting into art school, or maybe they were like, oh, I don't need to do it, what advice would you give them now?
It's weird because when I speak to other young people, when it depends on what course they tell me, I'm like, oh, should you go, should you not go? But I think for fashion design in particular, I think it's a thing you need to really learn. There's so much aspects of it, like the make, you're trying to learn like new skills, and like you're learning from other people in your peer group as well too, and sometimes these people end up being people you work with, and of course you can get experience and like do loads of internships, but majority of like the top designers have like that masters, or that they've been to the top schools and they've trained in some sort of way. Maybe I'm a bit old-fashioned by thinking that way. You kind of have to. It's not always about like networking your way up when it comes to fashion. You need to like show that your talent actually works and actually can, we'll say, compete with the rest. So it's more about just showing that you have a voice and opinion. So creating a portfolio that is really honest, and creating a portfolio that is very well researched and really explored in terms of creativity.
I agree, because I think like even before my uni experience, you don't realize like you kind of don't even know how to research before you get to uni. Like you think like going on like Tumblr, like at the time obviously, or like a little Google search was like, this is my mood board and like this is like the idea. And then when you get to uni, you're like, okay, this research can take anything from like a month to 3 months, or however how long you need to take for a project. And even just delving into like the libraries in uni and just that kind of uni experience is so invaluable, because you know, do you feel like you found your aesthetic during uni, or was it kind of after?
I would say so. I think I definitely needed the MA to spend the extra time, because I was like, as soon as I graduated from MBA, I knew I wanted to start a brand, but then I was like, I felt so lost. And even the first 6 months of like my MA, I felt lost as well too, because I was like, I don't really know how to translate what I'm trying to think into actual clothes, kind of thing. And it was good being told by like my tutors, don't make anything from the beginning of this course, and just really like conceptualize your ideas in other ways.
Yeah, it's so important to just sometimes just spend some time. I think, as we were saying in the very, very beginning, we do sometimes rush into things, and it's good to have that time to really develop an idea. And I wanted to just quickly touch on why menswear. Like, how come you decided that menswear was for you?
So when I first started, I was just looking at a lot of like menswear references. So either, I guess, finding vintage pieces that I found really interesting. A lot of my research was based around menswear, and it's like it became a bit imbalanced. Like there wasn't much women appearing in my research as men were. The tutor that I had was like, oh, why didn't you try men's? And I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to try it, because I'm like graduating in 6 months. So like, how is this going to go down? But it was always in the back of my head. So then I was a little bit convinced when he did say it, and it was kind of like I was waiting for someone to say it for me to have the confidence to do it. So I went away and then designed this collection of based around like the rude boy culture. I interviewed like some of my mum's cousins about their life. My aunt owned a lace store in Deptford Market, and it had like a lot of lace detailing. It was based around her 5 sons who were a part of a band. And I guess using those references really made me think about introducing my own culture into my work, because before I didn't really see myself within fashion, and I feel like it wasn't that often where I saw collections I googled that looked like they were about people from my own background, being Caribbean, But I was like, oh, I really could need to start using myself as a muse, or using my own background research as a muse. Like, why am I looking so far when they're so near?
Looking into your surroundings and where you're from and your culture, how would you describe your aesthetic?
Based around like deconstructing tailoring, but then it's a little bit more minimalistic. I try to balance it by using masculinity and like having a feminine edge. I think that's a thing that I've been trying to sort of find a balance within my collections. And it kind of started out appealing to guys that within my friendship groups that I felt I had feminine nuances in terms of their body languages. Just using that and trying to transform it into clothes. I felt like there was a lot of people that kind of existed but were being slightly missed out. It was like, it's either really masculine or overtly feminine. I just really wanted to create a guy that exists in between.
It's good you kind of touched about masculinity, because I feel like your work does definitely challenge masculinity, but also challenges like, you know, the idea of actually black masculinity, because I feel like usually when you think of like black masculinity, it's very like macho, it's very like hard and strong, and it's very, you know, like very bold and in your face. And I feel like your work challenges that, and that narrative of it having to be this like strong man, macho like vibe. Why do you feel like that was so important to you?
I think at the time, because it was like 2017 and there was a lot of conversation about like trying to show a softer image of the black male, I kind of felt like it was kind of producing the same sort of work where it's became softening because of the color pink, or softening became softening because of closed eyes, or like detaching flowers or that sort of stuff. Not to discredit that sort of work at all, because it was equally as important. I really wanted to create clothing that had a nuance of maybe like showing a bit of skin and giving the male access to either pull down that zip, or maybe like having a vest on top of things to kind of like hold close to his chest. Or speaking about my graduate collection in particular, creating ruffles in places, and then using feminine techniques like drape and introducing tailoring where the shoulder pads sit on top. You can also see the natural shoulder come through, was really important for me. And then I kind of kept the color palette very like normal and everyday. Black guys I know around me are not necessarily wearing the brightest of colors. It's usually the grays, soft browns, and like the creams. So I made it more about the design in that collection than it being color.
It's great to hear you talk about it, because I feel like it's definitely quite a bold statement to, especially when it comes to masculinity and black masculinity, to challenge that as well. I feel like I remember years ago, back in the day, when a guy would wear pink, people would still feel away like, oh my god, he's wearing, you know, like it would be like this weird, like, he's wearing pink. Obviously no one thinks like that now, but to go beyond that and actually add in silhouettes and elements that are feminine into the way you design goes beyond just the color pink, like you said. In terms of just mood boards and creating ideas, what's your process like for like a collection?
I usually start with the research first, and then I guess almost like puzzle piecing my research together. So I have like ideas in my head. I'm like, I need to visually see it. So I'm either pasting it on my wall and then like trying to create a story out of the images that are really speaking to me for that collection. Sometimes it starts off with conversations, and then that's how I kind of go to the library, flick through like many books, spend hours there. I really miss doing that as well. So I can't wait till this is over so I can revisit it again. Then spending time like either basing it on like a particular like source piece that's either vintage, or like using stuff because I have, now that I'm going into my 5th collection, I have quite a few collections. So like I now have like a little mini archive. So I'm able to bring out pieces, but like, I really want to do this again and like try this piece this way, that sort of thing. So working on a mannequin is a thing for myself that I've been able to revisit during this time, whereas I didn't have as much time to do that before. And that's sort of like how I do design. Then I carry on through the sketchbook and then kind of go back and forth with it. I do a lot of the making myself when it comes to doing like the actual collection. So I spend some time even making pieces and then I guess trying it on myself if I don't have a model. And yeah, that's what forms the collection.
Sounds like a very long process, a very long but worthwhile process for one person to do. I was gonna just quickly touch on, you know, when you go through maybe like a creative block or like a challenge when designing, what do you kind of do to kind of just recenter yourself, or maybe just take a pause or give yourself a bit more creativity? How do you kind of tackle that?
I really do struggle. I end up overthinking things a lot. So I end up either calling one of my mentors or calling Karen Binns and speaking through my ideas. Like the other day I had a conversation with her and I was like, oh my gosh, that is literally it. I don't know why I didn't think about that before, kind of thing. Sometimes just like saying your ideas out loud to people is really important, and that's what usually helps me discover it. Taking some time out as well, like meeting with friends, well not at the moment, but talking to friends and doing things doing things outside of like fashion.
No, but it's so important when you're like a creative to actually live, because when you're so wrapped up in working and actually living, obviously, you know, pre-quarantine and pre this vibe that we're going through now, but it's definitely important to like go out, meet your friends, and just live in the moment, because that sometimes just inspire you like a day to day. And I wanted to quickly touch on like, how did you tackle the business side of the brand? Because I feel like obviously one of the most important aspects of having a brand, and yeah, you want to be able to sell.
Luckily enough, when I started RCA, they brought in a couple people to speak to us, and then those that wanted to start a brand were lucky to speak to Stavros from Machine A. He was really helpful. I remember him having a conversation with me and a couple other designers about like how to kind of like speak to salespeople, what to do next when you get an order, that sort of thing. So literally taking those sort of notes. And I would say I'm quite a savvy person, so like there were a couple buyers that I was following, or they were following me, and I would ask them a message or send them a message. And then luckily enough, some of my friends, I have friends who are buyers, so asking them questions too. So literally just people being kind enough to offer their ear and offer their advice to me, and wanting to see, I guess, the brand work was really helpful. But I did spend a lot of time like meeting for coffees, asking loads of questions.
I think it's a good approach on it, because I think people get afraid sometimes to ask, and that's like, you know, don't worry about being scared to ask someone something or whatever. Like the worst you hear is no, or that person may not want to help you, whatever it is. But like, I love how you speak about it, because the main thing to do is when you're creative and you don't know something, just ask, because you'll meet your nice people that will tell you and want to like share their knowledge and pour it all out, and then you'll meet people that are like, oh, I'm not too sure, whatever it is. But you definitely will meet that person who was willing to kind of help you. So that is important to note. Anyone that's watching this, always just ask a question. Be very like, not in people's faces, but, well, you know, be in people's faces a bit, because you usually get results when you do that. Just in terms of accolades, obviously you were listed on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, which is obviously amazing. So I'm going to do a little clap to you there, girl, which is really, really good. How does it feel to have such like a huge accolade towards your name? And I feel like your journey's not only just begun, but you've got so much more you're going to achieve, and so much more you can do, but you've already got this under your belt. How does it feel?
I feel like I'm still not over it. I even like thinking about it now, I was like, I actually can't believe I'm still part of this list. It's crazy because like Forbes is such a household name, so it's so easy to be like to my parents, I'm on the list, and then they're like, oh, so what does this mean next for you? I'm like, it means I'm gonna be successful, basically. And like having all my friends really be supportive of it as well too has been really great. It was a huge like boost of confidence for myself, because I think at the time I was just like, oh, I'm actually tired of this whole fashion thing. It's being so hard. I'm like literally like struggling to make every single ball like stay in the air at the moment. But seeing that and noticing people that I didn't think were even looking my way has been really important to me.
I mean, when I saw you post it, I was like, yes. I was like, I remember seeing and being like, oh my God. Like, because it's just, you know, representation also is so important. Like, even though, you know, when we in our career, sometimes you feel like you can have that imposter syndrome, or like no one's even watching you, like no one even cares. But like you said, you don't realize who's actually watching, and you don't realize how, you know, you being on that list represents so much more than just you as a person, you as a brand, you as doing menswear. There's obviously people that are like a younger Bianca looking at you who wants to potentially get into menswear or kind of follow your journey. So you being on that list too is also like a domino effect. So I feel like, you know, someone's going to take some, you know, inspiration from it and be like, oh my God, if Bianca could be on this list, like, so can I. So it's definitely like a good place to be. So definitely congratulations on that. I want to kind of take it to more like advice questions, and just say, for any young people just watching who want to start out in the industry, like what would be like your main advice you would give them as well?
Oh, I feel like I missed this one out. Definitely get experience. Like, not just make sure you can get, definitely get. I think I wouldn't say it's like a regret of mine, but I kind of wish like I spent more time working under certain designers. Just see how like their different businesses work is really important. You have more time to make mistakes, but you can see if mistakes are made and not make them elsewhere. And then you learn how to be professional, how to write professional emails, and like how to actually get that job. This industry is definitely a network, and that's how you get to meet people. There's some people that I've stayed in contact with who I went on internships with, and they're working with companies that I really admire. So it's nice seeing that, and nice being able to go on Instagram and remember certain things.
Yeah, I feel like when you kind of meet people that you've interned with, and you guys can sit down and look back and be like, God, remember when we were like small little babies just like waiting for something to do, or waiting for a task to be given to us. And I do think it's definitely important, like what you said, experience. Of course, goes when you do the whole uni thing, that's great. You kind of learn the scheduling, the technical, the design, all these things. But experience is definitely invaluable. I always said that with styling as well. It's like, it's good to kind of assist as many people as possible, because then you kind of learn what you like, what you dislike, what, like you said, what mistakes not to make. You kind of meet everyone, and then by the time you know, you've met so many people, everyone just knows you now because you're just always around. It's always good to be that one that's kind of doing a lot of things and meeting a lot of people. And in terms of, you know, for the brands, how did you kind of, the whole PR route, get PR representation for your brand? What tips would you give for any designers that are watching that, you know, looking to kind of get a PR to like rep them?
Before getting PR, you need to be your own PR person. I feel like that's what made PRs be interested in working with me, because I noticed that, wow, you're actually trying to do the work yourself, and that we want to help you, I guess, get to the next level. I think I spoke about this recently, that like, I guess I'm represented by Purple PR. And I remember I was testing out loads of different things when I was at uni. So I assisted a stylist, and then we went together to Purple PR, and I was like, I remember, I'll never forget the agency. And it's like crazy that I'm actually represented by them now, because they've always had like really notable designers there. I would say shop around and find people that are really going to support you. It's really important to have that, because they're not going to do all the work for you. You are a part of the work. Yeah. Like meeting people is a part of like I guess the PR as well too, but then they're like kind of like finished off the rest of the work.
No, I think that's really important to say. So I think people think when they maybe get like an agent or a PR, like they can just, you know, like sit back and be like, oh, well, you know, I can be the star now and just don't have to deal with XYZ. But I think it's good to note that when you do look for a PR representation and agents and stuff, you need to also come with like a vision and come with what you feel like you want your brand to be in like 5 or 10 or whatever, how many years it is, because you can go to PR and great, they'll give you their strategy of what they want for your brand, but you also should have like a clear kind of direction and find someone that believes in that and supports that, because once you do, then you know the possibilities are endless in terms of like how your brand can grow. I wanted to also touch on like manufacturers in terms of making stuff, and I've heard from other designers it can be like absolute hell finding a manufacturer and all these things. What advice would you give to people that are watching that are like ripping their hair out basically and don't know how to do the whole manufacturer side of things?
I would say don't trust the manufacturer themselves. Don't trust them. Literally do not trust the manufacturers themselves, because like that's definitely one of the reasons that really made me want to be like, oh, I forget fashion, I've had enough of this is living hell. You will go to manufacturer and then you'll be like, oh, they've got this name here and that name here and they're really big, and then they'll make your clothes and they'll do it like really badly for you, and you're just like, why me, sort of thing. So it's more about finding a manufacturer that you have to just literally just shop around and like literally Google's your best friend, because a lot of people don't really want to give up their manufacturer once they found a good person, because it is really difficult to find someone that's going to be reliable, deliver all the things that you want on time, or maybe be flexible if you're a little bit finding your feet in terms of organization.
You sound like stressed even like answering the question, but I've heard so many designers complain so much, or be like maybe like a week or two before the show and they've just like messed up like, I don't know, an inch on the sleeve and it's just throwing the whole thing off, and it's just like stress. It's kind of stress that you kind of not brought on yourself, but like being in this industry is definitely not as straightforward as people think it is. Now you've had obviously 4 strong seasons. You're about to go into your 5th, so congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
You know, in terms of London Fashion Week, what is it that you love about London Fashion Week?
There's nothing like seeing a collection in person, and then people, as you were saying before, like some people come away from shows crying or like having some sort of feeling of joy. People don't really remember like drops that much unless you're actually standing outside the store and like like there in person to like wait for it. So that sort of excitement and that sort of glitz and glamour is what people attracted them to their careers in the first place, I would say. Of course, like in terms of like talent and being able to report back has been interesting, but then you miss the interaction of meeting people at the shows and talking to editors and stylists and all the rest of people that actually turn up.
No, I definitely do love London Fashion Week. I feel like I'm just always with my phone out, like taking a picture of that shoe or that trouser, and I'm like, okay, this, you just have all these, like as an editor, you have all these little ideas in your head already just like springing up from like sitting at a show or like attending a presentation. And it's definitely a good, even though you can't do it now and it's all digital at the moment, but it's definitely looking back a really good experience. Do you have like any like favourite memories or moments of London Fashion Week that you can think of?
I think probably my last fashion show, because it was like, oh, it was a bit of a risky time to be like, to do a 9 a.m. show. And then people, it's only been like a couple of months and people are still like, oh, I can't believe you've done it that way. It really made me think about certain things and really like changed their perception on like presentation. So I was like, right, I didn't realize, I set out to have an impact, but I kind of underestimated how much of an impact I would have during that season in particular.
I mean, 9 a.m. is a very, very early one, girl. Very, very early. But you know, it's funny, people go, even me, like you go to things that obviously if your schedule allows it, you will go, you know, even if it's 9 a.m. and you just, like you said, there's nothing like seeing something in person, just looking at it. Like, of course you can look back and like see when the collection's been photographed and stuff, but it's nice when you see the colours and the attention to detail and the tailoring. It's just lovely to see that in person. Now, I know there's been like a lot of talk of like going through a digital phase of people being like, oh, like shows are like dead forever. Like it's all going digital. There's never going to be a physical fashion show ever, which I don't believe. I do think the industry's going to change and just reset and just, I guess, rebrand itself into like a new schedule. What do you see future fashion being like in terms of shows?
I think it's just more the slowing down of pace. The most important thing I've been thinking about. I think fashion shows might combine together, but then if it does combine, I feel like menswear is equally as important as women's now. So it isn't as necessary to like do a whole separate fashion show. I mean, a whole separate fashion week. And I think that's what I do hope for fashion as well too, just to have like a better schedule. It's quite important. Everyone needs this time to like have time off or be able to think creatively. It's because it's actually so unhealthy now. I'm actually thinking about it, and there's things I really want to change moving forward.
It's so true. Like I remember, you know, well, not even I remember, like, but when you look back at shows and you think that like designers have to do like pre-fall and SS and cruise and like the capsule collection in between, and then like a random collaboration and then like a drop, and then there's just so many things to think about, and you kind of do wonder, when do they have time to actually sit down and really just design and really just enjoy designing a collection. So it's definitely, I'm really excited to see like what people are going to do next in terms of next season, when they've had a time to really reflect and really actually design and research and not worry about, oh, we've got your show in June, then there's like September, then there's this and there's that. So I think it's definitely going to be really exciting time to see what these collections are going to look like. Like I couldn't even tell you what they're going to look like, but I'm excited to see what they will look like. And in terms of just like the future of menswear, like where do you see menswear going now at the moment?
I think what I've really been thinking about is like the normalization of women designing for men. Because it's so normalized for men to design for women. More women design for men is something I'm really looking forward to. And I think a lot more women are encouraged to do so. I've noticed that with a lot of my interns have been women that are doing menswear.
You know, they could have seen you and been like, I want to be like you. And then so you don't know, you could have been the reason why you're getting a lot of, obviously, women designing for men. But no, I agree. Like, you know, you have so many amazing menswear designers who are women. You know, you have your Martine Rose, you've got you, like, there's so many amazing people. And it's weird, so many men, it's so true. I actually don't really think about that. So many men do design for women, and no one really says, no one's really making like pieces about it or write-ups, and it just like is what it is. And in terms of just, you know, different creative mediums, obviously, like you've explored menswear and it's going extremely well. Do you have any other creative mediums that you would love to explore too?
I feel like throughout me doing this brand, I've tried to add extra bits into it, where it's like working with Akinola Davis Jr. on like a film, or like working on like nearness exhibition, which I like invited like a few creatives to showcase their work, and showing art within Southeast London. Things that sort of create an atmosphere around the brand, and like creating the sort of like showing people what I'm interested in, and being able to work with creatives that are my friends and whose work that I really admire. So more films, I think, is definitely on my list, more artwork of myself, and just exploring other creative mediums. But it kind of all comes in time, because there's still things I really want to master being a designer, and there's still areas I really would like to strengthen as a designer. So I'm just taking one step at a time.
Would you ever kind of do like get into like maybe like lifestyle in terms of interiors and things like that? Would that be something you would want to get into?
Yeah, definitely. I was discussing that today actually, which is
Ooh.
very interesting. Like looking at actual homeware and thinking about collaborating with furniture brands is something I have a big interest in. And I do like follow quite a few like homeware pages.
I always love when like a brand starts with like obviously ready to wear, whatever it is, and it just like trickles down into so many different products, and it just feels like this whole like immersive world, like from like clothing to like, I don't know, candles or whatever it is. It just feels nice when you get a brand that just does like a lot of different things. So it's going to be really exciting to see, you know, we might see the first Bianca Saunders chair, like who knows, in the future. We'll be waiting for it. Kind of a bigger question in terms of like your hopes for your career and your brand in general. What do you hope for like the future?
I really want Bianca Saunders, well, it's so weird when I say my name. I really want Bianca Saunders to become like a household name. I want it to become recognisable all over the world, not just in London, because I feel like it's quite London based, like me being British. I want to be able to walk down the street and see someone wearing my clothes. I remember like I think reading certain interviews of designers and that being the highlight. I was like, oh, I never thought about that before, and it's become a part of my goal list. Expanding it into women's wear, hopefully one day. But at the moment, my mission is just to conquer menswear. I think that and be able to expand my team.
I definitely think you're on your way to do all of those things. But I did actually want to ask you really quickly, I'm just chucking in this question. Do you have like a person like or a guy and man that you would love to dress or like design for?
Frank Ocean, I was going to say Steve Lacey, definitely. They're like my ideal characters.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And I can definitely see both of them in your collection, in your design. So that would be super, super fab. Another one more advice question in terms of just anyone watching this now, like obviously during this time, maybe before the whole like pandemic and everything XYZ that's happening, they wanted to kind of get into fashion and become a designer. But obviously now this has happened, but they still want to join the industry. What kind of things do you think they can do at this time to stay creative and just start maybe building towards getting into the industry?
I think creating work without being told is really important, like especially for like design students. Like I remember Brooch telling us like we went away for summer and then no one made anything, and she was like, your design is out of passion or design is out of force. Like make work for yourself, not just for the impact of others. And I think that's really important.
That is a very, very good, I never really thought about it in that way. Like anything that you really enjoy or what you want to do, it needs to come from within. It can't be something that you have to be pushed to do, or else you clearly you don't want to do it.
Yeah, like it's not, of course, like, you know, you create work so it could be seen by like people on Instagram and that sort of stuff, but it's nice to be able to have work just for yourself and be like, oh, today I made this because I felt like making it, or I woke up today and had this idea, I really wanted to do that. And that's where you kind of gather all your best ideas and like have like a small like collection of things that belong to you, and then it becomes personal as well too. And I think that's what makes a fashion design interesting, when it is kind of personal.
And I think it's just also like a testament to kind of just trying to enjoy like every step of the way of your journey, of your career, whether it is just like applying for uni or getting your first stockist or seeing your first person like wear your designs and stuff like that. Is definitely important to just enjoy every moment. I've enjoyed speaking to you, of course. I obviously am a big fan of your work, and I just want to thank you so much for joining me. And I'm excited to see furniture. I'm excited to see more films. I'm excited to see the next collection and to see your brand expand as well. So Bianca, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the BFC X Wonderland How to Become series. As I said in the beginning, I'm Tony Blazey-Beckwith, Editor-in-Chief of Wonderland. And yeah, any last things to say, Bianca?
Oh, I just hope that people like really remember this conversation. That's about it. Like there's been so many epic things I've seen on between editors, and I'm like, that's really changed my life.
You've dropped some gems, 100%. But yeah, thank you so much for joining, Bianca, and hopefully I'll see you soon when this whole crazy time. So thank you so much for joining me, and yes, I'm signing out now, and thank you everyone for watching and joining in.